What on earth is IronMON? Hey, what even is it? IronMON is the latest in extremely hard challenges to take the online gaming community, specifically Pokemon, by storm. On Twitch, it has been gaining massive popularity over the last 1 or 2 years to the point where there is now a wonderful community of thousands of people consistently bashing their head against the wall to try and get victories in this challenge. Not only that, but there's an immense amount of resources developed and created by the loving and a beautiful community that puts their time and effort into making these challenges fun, accessible, and all those other good things. There's so much content and there's so many people doing IronMON, but still there's one thing that makes it so hard for new people to get into it. It's so dense.
I'm talking real dense.
So IronMON is essentially a super randomized version of a Pokemon Nuzlocke, where your goal is essentially to beat the entire game using just one Pokemon. Now, there are 4 main variations on the rule set that can be very confusing to differentiate and understand. So in this video, I am going to explain each category of IronMON, what the rules are, how they build upon each other, and hopefully make this world a little bit easier for you to understand. So, the 3 main versions of IronMON are as so. First, you have Standard IronMON. That is the baseline, that is the easiest version. Next, you have Ultimate IronMON. This is the middle ground, this is the sweet spot. We love Ultimate IronMON. And then finally, the one that you're gonna see most popularly on Twitch, you have Kaizo IronMON, and as the name implies, it's tough. Now, the 4th rule set is called Survival IronMON, and this one's a bit of a dark horse where instead of building upon the others, it kind of branches apart from them. Whereas you can imagine Standard IronMON is the grandpa, and Ultimate IronMON is the dad, and Kaizo IronMON is the son. Survival IronMON is kind of like the cousin over on the side. So it kind of we're gonna tackle that one differently. Each of these rule sets inherits the rules of the one that came previous to it. So Standard IronMON is the baseline. It is the baseline for all of the rules in the challenge. So that is the most natural place to start. So let's do it.
Standard IronMON.
So the first big rule in IronMON is that everything has to be randomized. Now, there are very specific settings that the randomization is going to use, but for the sake of not overcomplicating this video, we're not going to go into that. We will include resources in the description of this video so that you can find all those sweet settings options. But for now, we're going to just jump into the basic stuff. First, every Pokemon is randomized in every way other than typing. The list of traits randomized on each Pokemon include the following: the stat spread that they have, the moves that they can learn, the abilities that they can have, and what they're going to evolve into. To be clear, their stat spread is randomized, but their total stats are still the same. So a Dragonite is still going to have a ton of stat points to work with, but instead of being what it is in the normal game, it might be super fast and super strong with no defense. The moves that a Pokemon learn are also gonna happen at the same level. They're just gonna be different moves. So if a Pokemon was going to learn 10 moves as it levels up, it's still gonna learn 10 moves. They're just gonna be random. The only thing that's different and added in is that at level 1, every Pokemon in this randomizer, in this challenge, starts with 4 moves, including at least 1 move that is guaranteed to deal damage. This also means that all of your enemy Pokemon are going to be randomized. All of the Pokemon on the trainers you fight, in the grass that you search, everything. And to make it a little tougher, everything is scaled up by 50%. So that fight in the lab at the start of the game, it's not a 5 versus 5. It's you as a 5 versus your rival as an 8. Good luck getting past that one. Now, the next rule is what really separates IronMON and Nuzlockes for me. And this is the catch or kill per route rule. So in every route, you can catch or kill one Pokemon. It doesn't have to be the first Pokemon you see, but you can only catch or kill one Pokemon per area. Naturally, because of the limitation on the Pokemon you're allowed to catch or kill, this limits the resources available to you through your entire run. So, as the name implies, IronMON, you want to beat this challenge focusing on a single Pokemon because you really don't have the experience to be leveling more than one. Getting all of your experience from trainers makes it so that you're not going to be able to farm up your levels on other wild Pokemon in the grass. Of course, permadeath has to be a rule, so if your Pokemon gets knocked out, it's gone. If you white out, you have to reset your game and start a new seed. The only items you're allowed to buy are Pokeballs or repels of any type. Every other item, guessed it, randomized, and you got to find it somewhere out there in the world, so you better learn those item finder item locations. When you start a run, you must choose your starter without looking inside the Pokeballs to see what they were randomized as. The only exception to this is that you are given 3 Pokemon that you can set as your favorites, and you can circumvent this rule if you spot one of your favorites. For any generation above Gen 3, you get 1 extra favorite, as long as they're not legendary. Speaking of legendaries, you are not allowed to select one ever. If your pick in the lab ends up being a legendary Pokemon, then just forget about it and choose one of the other 2. It's your prize for being denied a god. I would suggest choosing the ball that fights the non-legendary Pokemon in the lab, because you don't want your rival having a Mewtwo for the entirety of the game. A few other minor rules are that you cannot use the Lucky Egg, you cannot refight trainers at all with the Verse Seeker or through any other method, you cannot abuse Thief or Covet to steal items from wild Pokemon, and if you are lucky enough to run into a shiny, you're allowed to kill it, even if you've already killed or caught a Pokemon on that route. But the most important rule, arguably, of the IronMON run is that you gotta say goodbye to Mom before you leave on your adventure. Otherwise, that's just rude. That is the bulk of the IronMON run. The standard IronMON run is a great way to introduce yourself to the challenge, as it's not too punishing. It's a lot of fun, and it teaches you all the core concepts you need to learn to get into this challenge. But I think the challenge is most fun in the next version, Ultimate IronMON. Now, Ultimate IronMON takes all of the rules that we put into place in standard IronMON and builds upon them. So everything we've already covered is a rule in Ultimate IronMON, but unless I say it's changed in a small way or so.
Ultimate IronMON.
The most important new rule to me in Ultimate IronMON is that you must one-shot gyms and you may not re-enter dungeons. What this means is that when you enter a gym, you must defeat every trainer in the gym and the gym leader without leaving to use a Pokemon Center. Now, as before, the heals are very limited because of the randomization, so this makes it very challenging to get through an entire gym with just your one Pokemon. In addition to that, not being able to re-enter caves is a very fun and kind of resource management styled rule where going through your various dungeons and caves and caverns in the game, you now want to defeat as many enemies as possible, but you can never go back. So if you're about to die and you need to leave the cave, you can, but that's experience that you're throwing away for the rest of your run. Ideally, you want to full clear every single area in the game to get the most experience as possible. So Ultimate IronMON becomes a balancing act of how much do you want to risk the well-being of your Pokemon versus how much experience can you get for the rest of the game. The next rule is that you are no longer allowed to use HM moves. Strength and Surf are just way too consistent and powerful, so get them out of there. The catch or kill rule still applies, but now you only get to catch a total of 6 Pokemon throughout your whole run. This is important because if your lab Pokemon is good and you can save the other 5 catches for the rest of the run, you can maybe manage to get a couple of decent Pokemon to have as backup for the Elite Four. If your starter ends up being really bad and you have to catch a couple of Pokemon in the grass, then you're throwing away a couple of potentially useful late game catches. A few more items are banned in this version, including Soul Dew, Leftovers, and the Everstone. You must allow your Pokemon to evolve if they attempt to. Battle style must be set, so you can't switch between Pokemon when offered the option between the enemy switching their Pokemon. And Pokemon experience growth rates must now be set to fluctuating. one of the more punishing experience growth rates in the late game, making every Pokemon stand on the same footing, but making that experience you're going to be getting in the late game very low. Now, in the event that you lose all 5 of your extra Pokemon and you only have your Ironmon, you are allowed to keep an HM friend in the party. However, you must not use it in any way that is beneficial to yourself in battle. No switching out to the HM friend to absorb a Solar Beam or to get away from Perish Song in this case. Now, Ultimate Ironmon does include a few rules that are specific for Fire Red and Leaf Green. First, you must fight the rival as soon as you enter the SSN and as soon as you get into Lavender Town for the first time. Other than that, you are not allowed to go with Bill to the Sevi Islands after defeating Blaine, so don't even think about using the move Relearner in your Ultimate Ironmon runs on Fire Red. So those are a lot of really harsh rules that Ultimate Ironmon introduces. While it's tough, overall, I think it makes it a very, very fun and satisfying run to attempt to complete and finish. It's incredibly random, but a skilled player is going to be able to make it through in a pretty reasonable amount of attempts. The next rule set, I would advise caution. It's kind of bullshit.
Kaizo IronMON.
Oh, God. Okay. When the Kaizo IronMON rule set was first shown, not gonna lie to you, I said to myself, I will never attempt that.
3,282 attempts later.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present your latest IronMON champion, xwater!
As if the rules of the IronMON challenges weren't already extreme, Kaizo IronMON takes that and ramps it up to a degree that makes this challenge so incredibly difficult that even the creator of it was unable to secure a win in under 7,000 attempts. Shoutouts, I ate your pie. So let's break down the rules that make this variation of IronMON such a pain in the butt. The first new rule is that you are down to 1 Pokemon forever only. You can have the HM friend, but just like before, you can't use it tactically in battle in any way, shape, or form as a sacrifice or anything else. Just 1 Pokemon. And if you decide you want to try and switch, you must switch. There's no such thing as catching another Pokemon, comparing the stats, choosing which one you like more. Nope. If you catch it, it's yours. You're stuck with it. You are also forbidden from using TMs that you get from anywhere other than the gyms. Now, in the randomization that we use for IronMON, every TM has a 50-50 chance of being usable, so this means you're going to have, statistically, about 4 TMs through the run that are usable for your Pokemon. And those 4 TMs might all be doggy doo-doo. In Kaizo IronMON, there are a whole mess of illegal moves now. Anything that heals you, along with the moves Spore and Assist, are now banned. The only exception is that you're allowed to use these moves in the rival fight at the very beginning of the game. Pseudo-legendary Pokemon are now banned, so Metagross, Dragonite, Salamence, Tyranitar, you can say goodbye to all of those guys. The only way you can use them is if you somehow are lucky enough to evolve into one. If you ever want to switch Pokemon and pivot to something else, it can only be a maximum of 4 levels higher than you. And if a Pokemon has the abilities Huge Power or Pure Power, you may not use that Pokemon. Unless its BST is under 400. You are no longer ever allowed to kill wild Pokemon, and if you do, you must switch to a Pokemon in that route before leaving it. All held items other than berries and herbs are now banned, except for evolution stones used specifically for evolving a Pokemon, so no, you may not abuse a King's Rock for the flinch chance. The various flute items are now all banned, so you got to be a lot more conservative and stingy with your status healers. On top of that, any sort of healing item use, that's PP, health, or status healing for your Pokemon, must be done inside of battle. This adds a massive level of threat to when you need to heal at any point in the game. Honestly, the list just goes on and on, man. You're no longer allowed to heal mid-dungeon, so the SSN and the Lavender Tower, where they have healing areas for you in there, can't use those. Every enemy Pokemon that's level 30 or above is going to be its max evolution. But the last big kicker rule is that every boss trainer in Kaizo IronMON is given 3 additional Pokemon. That means when your level 20, 21 Pokemon walks on into Brock and wide-eyed, thinks it's going to take down that gym, you're going to be faced with 5 Pokemon waiting to stop you, each of which is approximately in the ballpark of your own level. Of every single time I fought Brock in Kaizo IronMON, I think 7.5% of those resulted in victory. That is how brutally unfair Kaizo IronMON is. It is winnable, but only barely. And not only do you have to have immense skill and knowledge behind you, you need a lot of luck. Not only in finding your Pokemon, but in avoiding the threats that the game has to offer. Those are the big 3 categories of IronMON. To recap, you have Standard IronMON, the starting point, which is very accessible for beginners, a lot of fun, and arguably the easiest way to get into the challenge. After that, you have Ultimate IronMON, which is the sweet spot of the perfect amount of difficulty, challenge, yet also remaining fair and fun. And then, for the masochists out there, you've got Kaizo IronMON, the version of the challenge that is going to melt your brain, make you go insane, and hate yourself. Now, that last style of IronMON that we didn't talk about at all is Survival IronMON. And again, this one is more of a sideways jump from Kaizo than anything, and it deserves to be talked about separately from the others.
Survival IronMON.
Survival IronMON's core concept is that it limits the amount of Pokemon Center visits that you have down to 10. 11 once you beat the 8th gym, and in Johto, if you beat the Elite 4, you unlock an additional 7 after that. This is what makes Survival IronMON so different than the others. It becomes a game of resource management. Now, to offset the restrictions with the Pokemon Center, there are a lot of rules in place that allow you to get healing items. For example, you're allowed to purchase up to 20 potions before the first gym. And you may trade your flutes or PP maxes in for various healing items.
Wait a minute, xwater. If PP is an issue, why wouldn't I use my PP max?
Because that's illegal in this version. Each move is allowed to be PP upped a single time. Anything beyond that is prohibited. A few more abilities are now banned in this mode as well, including Shell Armor and Battle Armor, as well as Parental Bond, Protean, Fur Coat, and Magic Guard. A few rules are a little bit toned back from Kaizo IronMON here. If you're outside of a gym, you're allowed to use your healing items. If you have a healing move that absorbs health from an enemy, like Drain Punch, Giga Drain, Leech Life, any of those, you can use that. You're not allowed to use Recover or Milk Drink or Moonlight, but as long as you're draining that health from an enemy, you can use it. In Survival, all TMs are made 100% learnable, so you can use any of those gym TMs you find. And 1 HM is usable now. Cut. This is an interesting rule called Cut a Move, and if you decide to teach your IronMON Cut in Survival IronMON, you gain the ability to use held items. Now, Everstone and Lucky Egg are still prohibited, but as far as I'm aware, everything else is fair game. In fact, most successful runs that I've seen have depended heavily on the Cut a Move rule and leftovers as a combo. Survival IronMON is all about these micro optimizations and managing your resources throughout the entirety of the run, where in the other versions of IronMON, these areas between the gym where you're just fighting dozens of trainers back and forth and going to the Pokemon Center whenever you get a little bit damaged, it gets a little boring grinding out all that experience. Survival IronMON makes every single moment crucial throughout the run, and that is a huge foundation of the design. I have found it to be very challenging to get through. I have found it incredibly dependent on high PP moves with a high power. Extra Sensory is probably the best move you can pull in this challenge due to its incredibly high power and PP. But that is mostly it. Now, if you want the full breakdown of any of these rules, again, it's in the description. But if my breakdown helped you understand the rule sets of IronMON a little bit better, I'd love it if you said thanks by throwing the video a like or even subscribing to the channel. Now, it's worth noting that this is all just a fun challenge run on the internet. If you see a rule you don't like, don't use it. If you want to make it harder, go for it. Make your own version of IronMON. Tweak the rules. We've had plenty of people do it in the past, and it is so encouraged to just go out there and have fun with it. We do, as a community, get a little bit sweaty and strict about Kaizo IronMON and Survival IronMON specifically. If you claim that you beat Kaizo IronMON, but you switched up the rules, people are gonna... it's the internet, you know? What I like to do is just, you know, be like Kaizo light. You know, throw your own subtitle on it. Kaizo soft Kaizo. If you need ideas, leave them. Ask me in the YouTube comments. I'll reply. Anyway, that is everything that we have for today. I hope this breakdown has helped you parse the dense world of IronMON and all of its variations. If you're still confused about any of the rules, you can jump into the Discord. You can leave a comment in this video. We'll help you understand them as best as we can. Till then, guys, thank you for watching. Feel free to check out any of my other IronMON content. And until next time, I'm gonna get out of here.